on it. So I'm going to take 5 minutes on an icebreaker kind of a thing. Just to say, I know Mr. Mohandas Pai, MDP, for, I don't know, 20 years. And there are multiple ways in which I can say he has been a mentor in many, many ways. Girish, again, has been a mentor. Mr. Girish Natkarni, as you know, is an investment banker, and he has had a long kind of friendship with me, a professional advisory, personal friendships, and so on and so forth. He still doesn't like me for one thing, because I did not introduce my wife during a meeting. Till the meeting got over, he still talks to me about it. So that's there. Marinella, of course, she is more than Hera Project. She's the first woman CEO in the aviation industry in the world.
Oh.
She flipped her father's business, a single aircraft charter business, into an aviation. They still hold a lot of shares. So she literally has got that credentials to her. Of course, Angela is Coca-Cola. We will talk about Angela and her achievements and less about Coca-Cola in today's times, but great. See, she's a HR professional, handles that part of the Americas and Mercosur. That's giving a context to the profile in a bit more elaborate way. But what is important is we have Mr. Mohandas Pai, we have Mr. Girish Natkarni, and we have Marinella. All three of them have many things to do with the world of finance. All of them understand macroeconomics. All of them understand how markets behave. All of them understand the impact of large behavioral shifts to all cross sections of society. And this subject is a poser subject. Are we in the second meltdown is a question. It's also a dilemma. I am looking forward to this group to share with the world how some of these experts who have content behind them to take a stand, and I'm sure knowing MDP, he will take a stand, a very definitive stand. Knowing Girish, he will view the facts and allow you to decide. And with Marinella, I think she's got something up her sleeve. Her take on this is very different. So we're going to have an interesting evening. Thank you, all of you. I will recede into the background very quickly because I am on the content very shallow. I'm in the first inch of the space. I'm just going to throw a question across and go round robin with ladies first, just to get your feel, your take on the subject. Subject is very clear. We know the economies of many countries, big, small, or the other, has been impacted in very many ways. All due to COVID, and the impacts have been severe to more severe to debilitating. No questions about that. What's your take as a consequence of such an event which is unfolded in front of us? Where do you see the situation is emerging over the near term? And is this a meltdown? If it is, or if it is not, please let us know and share with the world. You have a viewership, ladies and gentlemen, live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Organizers say it's about 10,000 views are happening at this point of time, looking at all of you and wanting to know more about it. So Marinella, let's go with you first, and then I'll come to Angela, and then Mohan, and then Girish.
Mute. You're on mute, Marinella. You're on mute.
Mute. Mute.
You're on mute.
You are on mute. I'll get it first. Mute.
Unmute. Okay. Yes. Am I on mute?
You are now unmute.
Okay. Thank you very much, Javi. And hello to the other participants on this panel. Yes, in fact, I was for almost 30 years in aviation, but in the last 3 years, I'm only being and very proudly being a philanthropist. Answering to your question, are we in the second meltdown? We definitely are. There is no doubt about that. Is this crisis and is this recession similar to the financial crisis that we had in 2007-8? Well, if experts are right, they say that this one is faster, but it's going to be shorter. It is going to be it's sharper, but shorter. It's going to be like a V instead of a U-turn. When you define the new global economy, so it's the economy of the 21st century, is based in three principles. The first one is globalization, and I would like to talk later about this. The second one is the trade liberalization, and the third is the information technology and communication revolution. Talking about globalization, of course, the world is global. And whatever happens in one place happens everywhere. And that's what we are seeing now. The world is global and we cannot avoid it. The trade is liberalization only exists if there is not a lockdown on globalization. So I would say that the trade of people and goods is the cause and the consequence of globalization. And about technology, information, and communication, of course, it's very important because if it was not technology and communication, we would not be able to speak today in this conference. So it is very important. But also, and it's important to underline this, because of the communication, when there is too much information, it generates fear. So for me, this pandemic is a pandemic of a virus, but it's also a pandemic of fear. So how do I turn this into economy? I don't know if you want the others to answer to this part, or if I can later, can I continue? I'm not listening to you. Oh my God.
Don't worry, you can hear me, you can hear me.
Now I can hear you.
Yes, so the takeaway I have as your first response is, yes, it is global in nature due to the 21st century piece that you talked about how trade and people are intertwined. And you said that this is as much a pandemic of the virus as much as it is of fear. These are takeaways, but you answered it in the first line by saying you believe that it is a meltdown, and this meltdown will be shorter but sharper. So the use are the theories. I'll come back to you as to whether you quoted experts or whether it was Marianella's view much later. I'll come back. I'll pass the baton now and ask Angela about.
Thank you, Ravi. Well, first of all, I truly believe that this is the most complex time worldwide that we have all ever lived, but we were not prepared for it. So call it, if it is a complete meltdown, to me is probably a strong word, but it's not an easy time. And I will say it's just not because of the pandemic. Many countries also depend on oil prices, which have not been at best. So I think it's a major combination of, like Marianela was mentioning, it's a combination of not only a health issue, but also an economic issue. And the meltdown is dependent of how public policy in many countries has been handled. I could say, as far as my country or as my part of the world in Latin America, I have a lot of contrast. I see major difference between how Mexico, US, Colombia, Brazil, Peru have handled it. And it's a very different. So when I see my country being a third world country, I can tell you we are not in a meltdown. We're in a very complex situation, which is very difficult, but economy, even as hard as it is not as bad as others. And the reason is because in terms of leadership, public policies, how it has been handling, it has been in a very organized, smart way. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think it has been done probably at its best if I compare to other countries. So I believe that there is different ways to see it, but every single country, with the way I look at it, and I manage 31 countries in Latin America and as part of my business, it all relates to the public policy, to the politicians and the leaders that we have in each country. And there's a major context behind it.
Thank you. So Angela, sum up, you're saying as much as the COVID and the virus is, this is also about people, politicians, and the state and the government. That's what you're coming down to.
That is correct. That is correct.
The second point you have made is that it could be different in different countries, and it is all due to the way it has been handled. So partially virus, partially the way people and the governments and the way humans have handled this.
Correct.
That's the takeaway I get at this point of time. I'm moving on to Girish because there is an arsenal between them. Here, Girish, what's your take?
So, having heard first of all, good evening to all the participants. Having heard the views of Marianela and Angela, I think as far as the question is concerned, are we in the meltdown? I guess meltdown is a slightly harsher word for the economy currently. There is no doubt that the global economy is in difficulty. Almost every country has its own share of difficulties. Having said that, the world has survived 2 world wars. They have survived the Cold War. In 2000, the world was supposed to end, on Y2K. It has survived 2008 economic crisis. So the world is far, far resilient to survive, to call it a meltdown, really. But just to put things into perspective, the problem that one is facing today is quite serious. And I can, being a investment banker, I can, quote some numbers to justify the stand. If you look at the global economy, global economy is about, GDP of the global economy is about $80 trillion. And this year, that global economy is supposed to contract. Earlier, the estimate was about 3%. Now it is expected to contract almost 4.9 or 5% as per IMF, which basically means that 4 trillion of wealth globally will be lesser as compared to last year. And the hope is that in 2021, that will grow back by 5.5%. So at the end of 21, we would still be worse off than what we were in 2019. Now, couple that global, GDP with the global debt that is currently outstanding, and that is about $250 trillion, and expected to add another $11 trillion, this year, 2020. So the accumulation of debt is going on at a very fast pace, and I think all governments all over the world are recommending that there should be an infusion of liquidity, that central banks should push more money, that government should spend more deficit financing. With a $80 trillion economy going down this year and a $250 trillion debt which is going higher, the scope is very, very little. There are, of course, policy initiatives that governments have taken and can take. But by and large, I think the world is in a difficult spot simply on the back of hard numbers. Having said that, we definitely don't think this is a meltdown because, as I said, 2008 was a crisis which had impacted the whole world, and interest rates were low, but the world found QE, quantitative easing, as one of the ways in which they could get out of the problem. It, of course, has led to some other problems, but I think the collective minds globally are quite sharp and to be able to kind of and resilient to be able to come out of this situation. So I would agree with Angela in the sense that we are in a difficult situation, but certainly not a meltdown.
Okay, so I don't know whether that is semantics, wordplay, that we have been used to such a situation less than 13 years ago, and all of you have been part of that situation. So it's a question of getting ready and prepared so the shock is lesser. I don't know, but my takeaway is 250 trillion debt, quantitative easing, paper money getting printed, is all leading to where? Will the old solutions work now? These are questions and we will come to it as we go. But On that note, Girish, I understand there is a shrinkage close to 5% this year, and in 2 years' time, 2021, we are likely to be where we were in 2019. That's not saying anything good at all, because the meltdown also had similar numbers on less than 80 trillion. We were talking at 68, 67 trillion then, if my memory is right. I'm talking to 2008. So we park it there. Thank you. That's our first opening statement. Two very large numbers staring at us, but you still say difficult, not a meltdown. NDP, Mr. Pai.
Ravi, I'm more pessimistic than Girish is, because the global GDP, like IMF says, may go down by 4 to 5%, but I think by the end of the year, it will go down by 8 to 10% for a very important reason. The predictions were made maybe a month and a half ago, but even today, no economy has come back barring China. In the United States, the services economy is gone. Unemployment is 32 million people. It had gone to 40 million. Now the US is talking about another $1 trillion stimulus just to keep jobs going. Europe will come down by 10% or 11% this year. We already saw a decline of 18-20% in the UK last month. And I think things are not getting better, because there is no cure for this even now. There could be some medicine which will stop people dying, but there's no cure. Vaccines may come only next year. So if you look across the world, the largest employment is in services, travel, tourism, in hospitality, retail, and that's not coming back anytime. We're not seeing international airlines fly. They're just taking some little bit of flights. National airlines are still down all around the world. So I don't think it's going to come back. So we're going to see a much, much deeper decline in global GDP. The second point is, before this happened, the world was not in good shape. Global GDP was down, global trade was down, primarily because of US and China, and that's not going to go away. The US elections are in November, and Trump is going to get more aggressive on China, and China is the bad books of everybody. So globalization today is in retreat. The world wants to move away from China. China makes up 24% of global manufacturing, and every country wants to take it back. They're all incentivizing, like Japan, and we're going to see that happen in a very big way. And visas have been shut in the United States. We don't know what's going to happen. That's the largest economy in the world. And I think the free flow of material, people, and travel all around is going to come down for the rest of the year. July is nearly over. The third big issue is interest rates are going to remain soft for the next 2.5 years. The Fed has said for next 2 years, they're not going to raise interest rates. It's a 0.25% there. Out of $40 trillion of global debt, 2022 is already negative. And the world may require another $10 trillion from now till the year end to stabilize, to keep some hopes alive. Maybe 40-50% of businesses in the US and in Europe are zombie businesses. They will not come back because they can only pay a little bit of interest. They can't pay back the debt. And we are seeing that not taking off at all. So I think by the time this ends or comes back or stops, the world GDP will be down, and low interest rates will be very, very low, and interest rates going up will be very difficult, because maybe 60% of global debt for the OECD will be negative. And that has far-reaching consequences for pension funds, for fixed income, etc., all around the world. So debt is suddenly going to shoot up, and we don't know the consequences of that. The next important point we need to understand very well is, if you look to the future, Europe was not growing at all. It's just 1.5%, very meager. Population is declining. Europe is aging. The US is growing because of 1% increase in population. Japan's population is declining. It'll come down by 30-40% in absolute numbers by 2050. China will grow, but China's growth, maybe last 2 years of 6% may come down to 3 to 4%. And India will degrow this year, maybe 5 to 8%, may grow next year. So for the next 3 years, the global financial architecture, which is existing today, the result of the Second World War, is going to be very, very different. So globalization is the retreat. The global financial markets will have low interest rates, high surplus liquidity. Jobs are not going to come back in a big way because consumption is down all over the place. People don't know what to do. They can't keep on pumping money. There are 8 million people on dole in the UK, for instance, maybe 10-12 million all across Europe. And the EU has come with a 750 billion euro stimulus right now for all the big countries, and that's there. So there is no bright spark. So it'll take another 2 to 3 years for the damage to be undone, to come back to where we were on December 31, 2019. And when we do that, what are the world you're going to see? Japan in decline, China will be going sideways, maybe 3 to 4%. India may grow 4 to 5%. Europe maybe 1.5%, or maybe 1% or less. The United States may come back to 2%. So overall global growth, which was 3.5%, 4% for the last 20 years, may come to 1 to 1.5%, possibly 2 years from now. So the world declines by 10%. It's going to take you a long time to come back. So I think there's an inflection point for the entire world, and we're going to see a new world. The last point, technology has taken over like nothing else. If you look at the big digital monopolies, Apple may be $2 trillion now. Amazon is very, very big. We are seeing Microsoft become very big. We are seeing Facebook. So we are seeing people adapt to technology. In the lockdown, everybody's habits have changed. You buy through e-commerce, you get education through e-education, you do e-banking, entertainment is very different. So are people going to movie theaters? Are people going to restaurants? Are people going to do? We don't know. So every business will be impacted because habits are going to change, and the impact of all that has to be assessed. So all the marginal players who are floating around all around the world, they're not going to come back. So I think it's a very serious issue, and the world will certainly change, and it's going to be a very, very deep impact.
Very clear as usual, very, very sharp. I think the takeaway for me is three things. Consumer behavior is changed, patterns are visible, it will be minimalism. There is a sense of uneasiness. Jobs are not likely to come back. A shrinkage of this size is going to result in 3 years. Is there going to be fatigue in the Committee of Nations to fight this? So it's not going to be quick. It's a variation from what Marianella said. It's not likely to be quick. It's a 2 to 3 year. We're talking 8 to 12 quarters before we can see any semblance of order coming back. Will the world and will many of these nations, tired old Europe, a degrowing Japan, a China moving wherever, and an India put together, and a US maybe at 1-2%, the large economies, your G8, is taking this world maybe past that 1-2%. So these are clearly red flags to me. We will take each one of this and go forward. I hope I have summed it up, MVP, on your take.
Yeah.
And the reasons for it. We will come to it. I think what this has thrown for me, therefore, is two things. That the classical 1 trillion pump priming by US now, or what they had announced earlier, or UK subsidy, European subsidy, the 1.75 lakh, that is crore, which means X billions, that the Indian package to
260
pump prime,
billion.
260 billion.
The global stimulus right now is $9.5 trillion. Global stimulus is $9.5 trillion.
Yes.
Not working.
Yeah. Not working. So where do you go? What do you do with those cash? And as you said, when the 10 large central banks, the top central banks, are sitting on an interest levels of 0 to 100 basis point, and Girish, you and I discussed this earlier. Where is the option for these interest rates to go? Going up is impossible. Going down, there is nothing to go down. There isn't a demand stimulus yet to kick in. And therefore, there is this sense of a long-term who lasts longer versus who blinks first scenario. The summary of all this is, it seems like the globe needs to cooperate, but what is happening is the nations do not want to. We are pulling away. There is this nationalism. There is, as Mohan said, this is about a clear view that China at 24% and is having unease in the minds of the Committee of Nations. Everybody wants to pull back, take the rhetoric away. There is an imbalance out here. And given this, we move to the next stage of understanding these issues. I'm going to do the contra here now. So, Girish, you said no, meltdown is a harsh word, and there is resilience. I said we might be used to it, but you said it is resilience has been built. Mohan has come out very clearly with those 8 facts, which says that this resilience needs to last for 12 quarters before we can see some sunshine around, green shoots around. if I take these two views and put this across to somebody who says, I am not in a meltdown, Angela, would you like to recast your opinion?
Me? Okay. I think that our planet and our society suffer the impact of our choices. So the true sustainability will only come if responsibility is taken individually. So if you want to have a better economy, start by educating the people with more respect for the planet and for the others. For me, I am very much concerned in everything I do about education and about humanity. So I think if we have all these opportunities that might be open to the world, we have to profit and try to invest better, invest more in health and less in weapons, invest more in research for the good, for mankind and for the planet. I mean, how can you even think of conquering the space when you didn't even conquer the respect for the earth, the planet you are living in? So I think that that is a solution, yes, but the solution is by educating people first. The lockdown for me was wrong, I must say, because you cannot take the most precious thing the human being has, that is the freedom and the dignity. You cannot put people locked, you cannot block all the ways in and out of the countries. You cannot block, because you are blocking economy. When you block globalization, you block everything, because mobility is the leap of globalization. So what I think is that there is a way, but the way starts with education. And I would say that the world was crying out for help for a long time, and we didn't want to see it. I mean, I work a lot on sustainability. I work a lot in programs of saving the planet with our family foundation, and I am very deeply involved in these programs. So if we want to have a better economy, we have first to educate the people that run the economy. Economy is run by healthy people, healthy physically and mentally people. Otherwise, it doesn't go. So I think we should take a view on the humanity, on the fact that there is a better future of humanity. And when I speak later about my project of Hera City, you will see that I am deeply involved in this. So I believe there is a future. I'm not seeing any apocalyptic vision on the economy or on the world, but we have started by educating people to have more respect for the others, for the planet, and to have a more responsible view in terms of economy and investment.
Thank you, Mariela. You have added one more dimension to the situation at hand. You are saying it is not just the virus, we all agree, it is economic, very large economic impact. You are now saying there is also a social side to it, there is sustainability to it, and we have misused the rights we had on earth. And that is also adding up to the problem. Okay, you did not answer the question as to whether you feel that we are in a deeper mess than what we like to acknowledge. We will come back to that. I'm taking this across to Angela. Hold a minute. I want to take it to Girish for a second and hear from him. With this larger context emerging, whether you call it meltdown in the classical case as it was in 2007, 8 or not, do you think economies will sustain itself for the next 12 quarters and come out unscathed? Or do you believe there will be one or two very sharply defined fundamental changes that's going to define the way those countries will behave and people will behave? And what is the reaction of people to that?
So, like Mr. Pai said, the world is definitely in a very, very difficult situation. There is no two doubts about it. The next 12 quarters, as he outlines, are going to be tough. Having said that, for example, in 2008, when interest rates were kind of close to zero for a large number of economies, and when there was no solution in sight, the quantitative easing, and there were a lot of critics for that at that point of time, was one of the way out that the economies figured out as a solution. People believed that would lead over the years to hyperinflation and cause severe problems in the next 8 or 10 years. We are seeing that, unfortunately, we are seeing that despite so much of money, and 9 trillion is what Mr. Pai said, that the estimate is probably likely to be higher by $2 or $3 trillion. You will need probably 11 or 12 trillion dollars to be pumped in just to sustain and keep the economy at the global economy at where it is. But after all this money that has been put in, we are thankfully seeing that there is no hyperinflation. Typically, when a lot of money gets put into the economies, you would see prices, the prices that are actually rising, which is in a way a cause for concern, are there is an asset price inflation. Gold is at a high, stock markets, surprisingly, despite so much of gloom and doom being predicted, are still at reasonably high levels. It just took 2 months for the markets to come back from the lows of March. Globally, US markets, China, India, all the markets. So while there is this the specter of a global recession and difficulties hanging, there is a silver lining in that inflation has not yet at least as far as the basic goods and are concerned, and that's because this time the problem has been a dual problem which the world has not faced before. Normally, economies had to deal with either a demand side problem or a supply side problem. This time, because of the pandemic, we are having to see a problem which is both demand and supply led. You have producers who cannot produce and supply even if there is demand, and demand itself has gone down because everybody is staying in at home. Typically, in such situations, technology comes to the rescue, is what we have seen very often. So while again, the Amazons, the Apples of the world, which are now trading at over $1 trillion in terms of market cap. These, if we had to look back 10 years or 15 years, back when market caps were very small, it was very difficult at that point of time to predict whether two or three companies could capture $2 or $3 trillion of market cap. And that was largely on the back of technology. I think because of the crisis that we are seeing, there are a lot of new areas where technology can play a role. Telemedicine is one large area where if you, at least for the next couple of years, where if you're unable to see a doctor, by going and visiting him, he can be available through telemedicine, and this enables millions of people in areas which were, let's say rural villages and others, to access medicine, and the market for telemedicine can explode. Similarly, online retailing is another area, where the ability to source goods from anywhere in the world, sitting in a small town anywhere in the world, just opens up the market. So telemedicine, online retail, cloud kitchens, industrial robotics, these are areas of the future. And it is anybody's guess how soon or how fast can they help in getting the economy back in shape. The 1 year is a certainty. I mean, the next 4 quarters are definitely, the whole world is seeing that they're going to be difficult. But whether it will last for 12 quarters, I'm a little more optimistic. I think, you should see some recovery coming in.
I think you've got some valid point, but I want to take it and sharpen it. I'm going back to MDP and seeking from him 3 things. All these technologies which have become slightly habit forming or likely to become habit forming, as we said, whether it is telemedicine, etc. I think there is an inflection of technology. We don't deny it, that there is the mobile telephony, data cost, all of that can enable remote delivery of services, which was not envisaged at the scale by which COVID has pushed us. Fantastic. But I'm coming to the fundamentals here. If 24% of the global manufacturing is in the hands of one country and the rest of the world believes that it is not the best thing to do, you can source from anywhere as long as it's not China. You think that is going to happen in 1 year?
Ravi, it's going to take 4 to 5 years, 6 years to happen, but the broad trend is there. Just yesterday, Prime Minister Abe announced that some 60 Japanese companies are shifting production from China back to Japan and to Southeast Asia. And we are already seeing that production go back. Because Ravi, you must remember one thing today. Manufacturing is becoming fully automated, fully robotic. When you are robotic manufacturing, fully automated manufacturing, there is no advantage in being in a low-wage country. And China is definitely not a low-wage country.
Not anymore. I agree.
Not a low-wage country. So productivity will be much better. So I think it is shifted, but it can't happen overnight because China is a $15.5 trillion GDP. So it exports $2 trillion. So there's a lot of things to happen, but it's been happening for some time. It will accelerate, and we have to see what this impact is. And also the most important thing is that global demand will be down. Commodity prices are down. And in this pandemic, we are seeing the environment come up. The environment, people are seeing blue skies. People are breathing fresh air all over. They don't want to go back to the old thing. So maybe 25, 30, 40% of the people around the world will work from home. They will not commute. They'll work from home. So human habits will change. And all the digital companies will dominate. The business models will change. People will not travel so much. Why should they travel? I think all of us are more productive staying at home. Maybe we have forgotten the habit of going out. So there's a change in human habit. Consumption is down for some time. There is global surplus liquidity. Jobs are not going to come back because a large number of them in services. And services are impacted very, very deeply because they're all about people. There's a shift away from global manufacturing in China. Globalization retreat because of China's hegemony in the South Asia Sea and the Indian border. But the world is not going to kowtow to China again. And the United States is going to have a coalition against China. China is a great power. The United States is a great power. So after the Second World War, it was the United States and Soviet Russia. Soviet Russia went down. Then China came up. And the world was benign about China. Now the world is very careful. Europe is very careful about China. So I think we're going to see a change in the global political landscape, economic landscape. And that's going to have a deep impact in the world.
Angela, I'm now coming to you. You are on mute. You need to unmute, please. You heard this. It's very clear that China is playing not only playing in the minds of countries, and your country, and like many others in that part of the world in Mercosur, has a deep China or a good long-standing China connect, right?
Right.
So do you see yourself, therefore, getting impacted by things happening in China or things happening to China?
Both ways, I believe.
Economically, yeah.
Both ways, I believe. Of course, there is a lot of dependency on the economy in China, but as I heard before, we are still in the process, and I think it's everywhere in the world. We are still in the process of learning how to move away from certain dependency in certain countries, but at the same time, how to revamp or reestablish another type of partnerships with countries that will support us in this time of crisis. I believe that this type of dependency is changing, and we're still in the process of learning through this pandemic. And what I'm saying this is because life already changed. I don't think consumers are going to change. I don't think governments are going to change. We already are changing, and we're in the learning zone at this point, and we don't know how we're going to come out. I'm sure we'll come out as stronger. I'm sure we're going to learn not economic dependencies in some countries such as China, in this case, have to be that critical, and we'll reinvent ourselves. We'll switch economies, we'll switch, I'm not saying switching economies, I'm switching source of economies. We will be switching, we're already switching patterns of consuming. So therefore, I truly believe it's a point of adapting. It's a point of learning. It's a point of redefining priorities. I heard before, consumers are changing. E-commerce has become a big important part of our countries. People readapt. People change with these situations. So believe me, I don't think in my case we will be the same as we were before. We will not be dependent as we were before. We're learning to do different things. We're learning to supply from different places. So I believe that that's the new trend. And that's what governments have to do. That's us as a community have to do, since we cannot, since this is the world is changing for all of us. So that will be my point. We don't know what we don't know yet. That's the only thing I want to say. We're still learning, and in that learning process, we will come back as stronger. How is going to be different, I'm sure.
Okay, valid point. We are still in a learning curve, is what Angela says. Time will tell. Mariela, you had something.
Yes. I would like to say, and I think it's very important, we are in a learning curve. And I think that I hope that this is going to be a trial period, because it should not be changing behaviors of the human being. It should be considered as an intermittent period in our lives. We are talking about online, we are talking about technology, we are talking about telework, telemedicine. So is this the way we want to live? Seeing the world through the window, is this what we want to give to the future generations? What is the point of having clear skies, like Mohandas said, which is, I agree totally. And I think that what happened is that at least we could clear the skies, but who cares about the clear skies if you don't have the bread to give to your family and to your children, or if you are stuck inside the house and you see the walls through the window. I sincerely hope that this doesn't happen for a long time, that this is a short period in our lives, because the youth is crying for help. They are eager to live, and the elderly people that have less time to live are seeing their time taken from them. So what I want to say is that once again, it's all about educating and stop and think, are we going for better? No, we are definitely not going. So I hope that this is a short period.
Okay, so we will take these contrasting views with all of that. Therefore, where do you see, all of us agree that it is not a one year turnaround time, and it is going to possibly be longer. So do you think there is sustenance amongst this 3.5 billion, which is the 4-5 countries put together, the India, China, US, and Indonesia and Malaysia? They contribute a lot to the number of people on this planet. If the jobs going 30, 40 million in each of these countries, not climbing back, use of change like automation on one side in a country like India or like a country like China, take away jobs and therefore employment and therefore money in the hands of the people. Where do you think, is there a social side issue we are going to see? There is going to be social unrest, the bottom of the pyramid? Mr. Pai? You are on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, governments will make sure that they pump in money to avoid social unrest. That's the result of the stimulus, and that's going to go on. India has launched the world's largest work program to keep people happy, give them a little bit of money. And all around the world, governments are doing that. So I don't think there'll be social unrest, but the cost of this pandemic economically will be enormously high. That means people's level of consumption is going to come down. Everybody will be on survival mode. Survival mode to keep body and soul together, to have food on the table, a little bit of education. Discretionary spending will come down because middle class will not have surpluses. The richer classes will see the value go up because they own a lot of stocks, and the stock markets are going up because of the surge of liquidity. There's going to be an asset bubble, etc. So we're going to see that the divide between the rich and the poor is going to expand. So I think this is going to have impact on global politics too. See, the point I'm trying to make is, after the Second World War, the global architecture economically and politically was created by the victors. Now, maybe 70 years later, with this pandemic has shown up the fissures and the fault lines all around the world. And the fault lines are the rise of Asia, the decline of Europe, the relative decline of America in terms of global GDP, etc. Now we need a new world order. how the new world order is going to come, how is the political climate going to come globally, what is geopolitics, the economic scenario is something that you have to see. And add to that, there is an aging society. Japan's population is declining. Europe is not growing. Europe is aging. Average age is 47 years in Europe, right? Even America's average age is 37 years. It's only the immigration by the Hispanics that has kept America population growing. So the society is aging very rapidly. We're not having enough babies being born in Western societies. And that is shifting politics. So we're going to see all this impact is all come together. So next 3 or 4 years will define the world for the next 25, 30 years. And I think that's going to be a very different world because of all these reasons. And this has accelerated the trend of change.
Yes, very clear views from all of you. You have not held any punches. Looks like 8 to 12 quarters, there is an economic side impact. There is an impact on the human being, on their employment, on the table. Likelihood of social unrest not happening everywhere is not certain, but many of these governments have pump priming, putting money in the hands of people. Will it make them lazy? Will jobs go away? I don't want to work. Will labor costs go up? That is for a different line of discussion. Meghalaya, how much time do we have, please, Meg?
1 minute more.
We have a minute. So any closing remark, 3 words to describe what you think the next quarters are going to be in your economies or broad spectrum. Girish.
Well, I think, as I said, I'm probably the most optimistic in the whole group. I would think this is a time for change of habits, as Mr. Pai said. Things will change, and the outlook should be positive after 24 months or so. The world order will change. From an Indian perspective, I think it's a good chance for India to scale up, its GDP, grow at a faster rate. You have the advantage of a large population, young population, and therefore consumption and other things will grow. So India has its chance to have a place in the sun. So I'm quite optimistic.
Thank you. An optimistic banker, a very rarity in any world. Thank you, Angela.
I'll say 3 things. First of all, is 1, we will need to make sure that we leave a better place for our future generations. Not living in fear, but understanding the importance of taking care and respect for others. A lot of the crisis that we have seen is people not caring about others. It's people being selfish about how they want to approach this pandemic. So respect comes in a very important place. Second, in terms of politics, I truly believe, like I said before, it is critical that our governors, that people that are handling countries, make the perfect balance, which is not easy, but make a perfect balance between health and economy. It's not just one way. The balance cannot go just one way. It has to have, or at least kind of be able to navigate through the perfect economic levels and managing economies at certain levels, but also managing health issues at a certain levels.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, and just last, I will say is, I'm sure that we'll come back as stronger. We will readapt, we will learn. And that's what it's all this about. We will not be in a hole, and we will be better after this.
So hope and perfect balance from everybody else in the world is what Angela says. Good luck. Mariana, quick 2 words, please.
Yes, I will defend the human-to-human economy, more responsible production and more responsible consumption. And I think that this virus was a wake-up call. So learn from the virus, learn from this pandemic, and start changing the world for better. And if you listen to me afterwards, when I will be able to speak about Hero City, you will see that
you are not allowed to pitch.
No? No, but no, because it is a new way, a new road for this world. So that's why I mentioned it. And thank you very much. Welcome.
Closing remarks, sir.
Well, I'm an optimist and a realist. A realist because the sun is going to rise in the morning, set in the evening, whatever happens on this planet. The world is going to go round and round, and we got to make up with it. But I believe the time has come for change, far-reaching change. Geopolitically, the world has to change. We must take care of the climate. We must take care of all people on this planet because they're very important. Countries have to rearrange their affairs. The financial system has to change. Economic power, which is concentrated now, has to shift to more countries. Everybody should have the necessities of life. So I think all these points are coming up together in this pandemic, because the pandemic has seen a sudden drop off. The world fell off a cliff. In the global financial crisis, the world didn't fall off a cliff because the financial economy was hurt, not the real economy. The impact of the financial economy, real economy was there, was not hurt. Now the real economy is hurt, and that's the big issue. But the world will rise again. Things will happen, but the world will be a changed place. That's my thesis.
So it's a brave new world we are hoping to get. And in the interim, we will live with the 12 quarters of whatever it gives us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, esteemed speakers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we close, before you close and you shut off, Meghalai, please.
All the speakers, all the esteemed speakers in this panel, Women's Economic Forum confers the lead to the Defeat Award to all of you, and I'm honored to announce this to you. The award will reach you after the conference. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope all of you have some place in your different cupboards for one more of a plaque. But this is a great forum, 150,000 members across 123 countries. And thank you, all of you, for saying yes at the first call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You
Thank you.
sit back for the session. Marinella, you stay back for the session. So,
Okay.
yeah. So you can.
Marinella, I don't think you need me for Heracity. It is all yours. You won't give me a talk in it. So I'm changing my hat. I will introduce you to the audience once again. And this time we will get into the other aspects. The Philanthropist, a family foundation, study on immunology, Heracity, something for women. Hera, as I was informed by Mariella herself last week, the goddess who protects women in Greek mythology. And there is a movement for women out here. There is a convention center, an educational institute, advanced studies on future of humanity. There's a museum which will capture women across times and ages, and all kinds of services and infrastructure for a whole city of people to thrive and bring about a more just, gender equal order. Have I managed to communicate the right thing, Marina?
Right. Couldn't say better, Javi. Thank you very much.
Welcome. So
Bye-bye.
the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Marin.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. For those who haven't heard before, my name is Marianella Mipuri, and I am the founder of Hera, the Light of Women. And I thank WEF very much for the opportunity of coming here and explain, even if it is in a quick mode, my project that was already considered to be one of the biggest projects of the 21st century. If you ask me to define Hera in 3 words, I would say first, education, second, education, and third, education. It's all about educating. Hera is the new way of a female empowerment and is the umbrella for all those who care for a better world and future of humanity. The difference between Hera or any other institution or organization working for or on behalf of women is that in Hera, we have decided to materialize the principles into a physical city, a real city that we call Hera City, that is a smart green city for the future of humanity. Hera started as a movement some 20 years ago And in the last 2 years, I have created and launched the Hera Association and challenged a French architect called Gilles Bakhtiar to project a city that would be the city for the future of humanity. Since then, we have been running throughout the world, presenting the project, giving conferences, talking to governments. And I must say that right now we are talking to some governments that want to welcome Hera City in their countries. And I have to unveil that probably India is one of them. Why not? We center our communication in one symbol, that is Hera perfume, the light of women. This perfume is being conceived and created by one of the biggest bio-perfumers, a French called Jean-Charles Sommerard, that soon understood the responsibility he had to create the perfume that I call the perfume with the mission. The mission to make women responsible for other women, because the perfume is a non-profit sale, and the net profit of this sale is totally going to help the women's programs that we have running throughout the world, especially in India, in Brazil, and in Africa. So the mission of this perfume is to actually make women responsible for other women. The second mission is to link all these women through the same scent. And with this scent, they will be recognized themselves in Hera City, because it is this perfume that will drive them to Hera City. I would like to tell the story of the perfume and how it came, but I don't have time. But we have a project from an international producer that is for a series about Hera and Hera City to be in the Netflix. Hopefully next year you can watch this story of Hera City, the perfume, and the women all together in this very special place in a Netflix series. If I have time and I am allowed to speak about Hera City itself, I would say that it is composed by 3 main pillars. The first pillar is an iconic building. I don't know if you can see, if I can show here, you can see this iconic building that has been designed by the architect Gilles Bakhtiar. Is a huge building. And it serves as a convention center for conferences, exhibitions, workshops, events, festivals, and so on. The second building, then the second pillar, is the education pillar. So we have projected an Institute of Advanced Studies, and the study is going to be on the future of humanity. Before this happens, I already have created last year in joint venture with the City Hall of Cascais in my country, the Observatory for the Future of Humanity, that is gathering the biggest minds in the world to discuss and publish work about the future of humanity. And this same observatory is structuring actually the future Institute of Advanced Studies that will be built in Hera City. The third pillar is a museum that shows the story of the women in the past, the present, and the future. And from this center will be raised a whole city with apartments, houses, hotels, hospitals, restaurants, shops, coffee shops, and so on. Everything that the city has. So this is Hera City, this is the Hera project, and I see that you are already there, like me, to shut me out. Saying that my time is out.
Because I don't want it to get cut, you know. I'd like you to sum up because the time is up already. So can you just sum up, Marina?
So no, I would just like to thank and say that you are all welcome to our city, and you are all welcome to visit us in our site. So there is all the information there, and you will have a TV series. We have also a digital channel that is Hera TV, and we have much going on, so you will definitely hear from us. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us from Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.